peace, prosperity, health and wellness on your house, longevity and vitality in your life. Just briefly, I want to touch on some of the things that you're seeing happening. Some of those, all of the things that you are witnessing in America and in the world today are a sum total of the wages of sin, right? You do this, man, and I mean, again, we can understand it very clearly, right? If Ray Ray is in the community fucking up, right? If Ray Ray is beating up old people, right? And doing horrible things to women and babies, Ray Ray not gonna last long, right? Ray Ray not gonna last long. He's not gonna enjoy a long and comfortable life doing those things. So we can understand it as it relates to us, right? The natural order of things we apply to ourselves, but we don't apply it necessarily to everything and all that we see. So we get this Home Alone face when we see something horrible happen in America. But America's history is fraught with horrible acts over the last 400 years without skipping one single second, right? You have a country and a nation that embraced apathy, disconnection, hatred, and the most atrocious practices. They not only practiced them, they embraced and fostered and taught their sons and daughters and sons and daughters for 20 generations. For 20 generations, they embraced complete apathy. And so today, simply because they got I marched with MLK button, we stand in America and think that the history that produced them doesn't impact them just as heavily as the history that produced us impacts us, right? So we seem to think they're somehow insulated or free of the effect of the causes that they put into place, right? So we look at what's recently occurred this week, right? In the last couple of weeks. And we saw our brothers and sisters murdered, right? By a gunman. And he walked through the store and he trained his gun on a white woman and then apologized and continued forward to murder our people, right? And so what is happening is that the honeymoon is over, right? The shine has worn off. You see, America produced a machine that was designed to feed on the bottom in order to supply the top with what they wanted, right? The goal here was to install an aristocracy very similar to what was found in Britain, and a hierarchical order where somebody was eating the most and somebody was eating the least. They produced a serfdom, a peasantry. They created a permanent underclass, and they used your black ass as the transgenerationally fixed asset upon which everybody else would eat, right? And so to give you a contemporary example of how that works. Donald Trump, when he builds a building, when he builds a residential building, the first 20 floors are low income. The first 20 floors of the buildings that he builds are low income. And the following floors are the most ritzy and expensive places you could ever hope to live in. The 20 floors at the bottom pays for the whole building. The 20 floors at the bottom in all of Trump's buildings, in his residential buildings, the first 20 floors pays the nut on the whole building. So everything from 20 floors above is gravy. It's just gravy, right? He charges them 20 floors and above exorbitant amounts of money in the same damn building, right? This is how America works. He didn't do nothing but duplicate what America does. It uses the permanent underclass as a means and the fuel to sustain the body, right? It's to take the very least and use it in order to produce maximum benefit. So again, the first capital in capitalism was Black folk, right? The first commodity that was traded on the stock market was in fact named. Wall Street was in fact named for an open air slave market. This isn't opinion that I'm sharing with you. This is actually a fact, right? The first commodity was Black bodies, Black wombs, Black skin that they used to make leather, Black teeth that they used in George Washington's mouth, Black thought, Black ideas, Black energies. Absolutely every single thing that exists in this country was predicated upon your existence and your energies. Okay. So today, what has happened is white people, the shine has worn off. See, what America sought to do, 1776 is when the corporation known as America came into being. What that means is that from 1619 to 1776, they were importing Black bodies. They were using Black wombs to create a workforce that allowed them to compete and control 79% of the world's cotton in those eras of time. It was able to allow them to compete in agriculture and tobacco and many different industries on a global scale based on having a free workforce. So the prosperity of America was produced in this period of time in between 1619 and 1776. But beyond that, what else was produced was a political system that was based on the plantation politics. They studied what was happening. When I gave this one a little bit more, how did they respond to their others? How did the politics trickle down on the plantation? And based on that, they built a system. Based on what they were learning within the plantation, they built an economic system, they built a housing system, they built a system that they would be able to trick every single group of people into the future into willingly giving up what they had forcefully taken from those people that they forced into the plantation. This was the machine, right? How do you, instead of using whips and lashes and horrible practices, how do you make everybody that comes into this country give up their name, their culture, their God, their religion, their lands, and everything in order to be called an American, right? Same things that they took to make a slave. They took your name, your religion, your God, your continuity, they took those exact same things. So how do you produce a system where everybody will willingly give up what it took, the whip and the lash, to take from your family? And so they built this system and it worked. So the Lithuanians came in crying, "Oh, we're so glad to be in America." Hungarians came in, the Jews came in, the Irish came in, the Italians came in, the Eastern Europeans came in, the Germans came in, the Chinese, the Japanese, all of these different groups flocking to America, right? Leaving their homelands for this dreamland of opportunity, right? And prosperity and wealth. They all left everything. They gave up their names, their culture, their God, their family names, their lands. They gave up everything to come and be an American. Well, again, the shine is wearing off. It is becoming apparent that America never cared about those populations of people. It used them. It sucked their wealth. It sucked their energy. It made them slaves. Each and every one of them came in thinking that they were going to enjoy a station higher than you. That's all they had to do, was promise that it was not going to be, look, and I see my brothers and sisters in these various groups talking about Africans are trying to replace us. Who do you think wants to replace you at the lowest rung on the ladder? Who do you really think wants to replace you as a transgenerationally fixed asset at the lowest rung of the socioeconomic ladder. Who? Who? Nobody. And guess what? Those people that you're worried about replacing you, those Africans that you're worried about replacing you, it doesn't take a generation any longer. It doesn't take a generation for people that come into America to recognize that this is slavery. No, it happens in a shorter period of time. 5, 10 years, they realize that they're slaves to their system. And every immigrant that's coming in here recognizes that. The moment you get here, you sign on the dotted line for a car and a house, all of a sudden you got a lease and you can't leave. You're a hostage. And every immigrant is realizing this, right? So, but what has happened, and back to the how did the shine come off? The shine has come off because now the population has been reduced to the station that you have been in transgenerationally. They suddenly realize that the same shit that they putting on you is the shit that they putting on them. And they like, wait. I thought that heroin was for them. I thought the opioids was for them. I thought this abhorrent treatment was for them. I thought that I was one of you, right? This is what the Hungarians, the Lithuanians, the Italians, the Irish, the Eastern Europeans, the Germans, this is what they're waking up to right now. They thought that the bullshit was reserved for my father and for your father. They thought it was reserved for us. And today they recognize, yet, as an acronym, you're eligible too. They realize that the same bastard that tells me I got a right to use my mouth and my tongue is the same bastard that controls it for them. The same one that says, right? I mean, there's some insanity that happens here. Your enemy tells you, you got a right to bear arms to defend yourself against me. What? What if he said you couldn't defend yourself against him? Would you give up your arms? The fuck? Like, there's some, like, it's retarded. Like, that shit is insane, right? So, okay. The shine is wearing off. The Eastern European recognizes he's in the same position as we are. The German recognizes they're in the same, you a slave too, fool, right? And they don't get it. They're now getting it. And what you're seeing is white people reacting to that. They're reacting to the fact that they're realizing you ain't no more valuable than me. Not to this system. This system is a slave maker. It has always been a slave maker. Everybody's got a social surveillance number. Everybody's got a transaction on the stock market based on your birth, right? Everyone. So 100% of the people in America are slaves. How do you make a slave? You make a slave by having a being completely dependent upon you for everything that keeps them alive. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you say. You super revolutionary. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna do all that shit. But the dude that you're fighting can turn off your water and not fire a single shot, and everything you love is dead. Dead. He ain't gotta fire a single shot, right? And with that control, he don't even have to make the threat. You will never step to that line afraid. You will never step to that line where he needs to make the threat and say, yo, I'll cut off your water. I'll cut off your food. He don't got to even make that threat, right? So what you do is you settle down into that little box and you stay there comfortable and you hope that you can maintain and live, right? And find comfort under this abhorrent condition, right? So you settle into that bullshit, yeah. But suddenly the white folk are realizing, right, that they're slaves too. And while you have been so beaten, while you have accepted defeat to the extent that somebody might grant you rights, and you listen to this fool, right? White folk and the other humans here are like, wait a minute, that shit ain't right. That shit ain't right. No, you can't do this to me. They are protesting about being put in the same station as you. They thought it was reserved for you. So white folk are losing their fucking minds. You're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it. I didn't, this isn't, I told you this was coming. I said this was coming, right? I spoke to this. Now, I want to go from the monster that shot ours and was taken into custody, right? In Buffalo, and move to the school shooting. So at the school shooting, that dude was in the school for an hour while the authorities were outside telling the parents, yo, stay back, stay back. They're not going into the school to stop this dude. He had an hour. What does that mean? That means that some of the children that died in there were alive. Were alive. And because the authorities told those parents, step back, we got this, step back, those children are dead. And not one of these parents, yo, I'm sorry, me, yo, I got my gear with me. You hear me? I got my gear with me at all times. I'm going into black and I'm going into that building to get mine. I don't know who the fuck you thought over superseded my responsibility to keep mine alive. I don't know who you thought had that responsibility over me. Huh? Mine is in there alive. I'm not, yo, are you crazy? So not one of those parents thought that as a human being, the responsibility to preserve the life of their children fell ultimately on themselves. Not one. Every one of them acquiesced to the authority of a punk that didn't go in there and stop that man from killing them babies. An hour they sat outside with weapons, and their backs were turned on the aggressor, and they were keeping the parents at bay. Their attention was on the parents, keeping them at bay while their babies were being murdered. While this man was free to walk around for an hour, picking and choosing his targets. This is what happened. And so it happened directly in front of your face. Let's recap. This man was outside with his weapon for 12 minutes. They got video of him walking around the grounds. They did nothing. He then went into the building and he spent an hour in that building while the authorities, the police department, the SWAT teams stood outside for an hour, allowing him to do that. And you have the nerve to stand before me and speak to me about some political solution? You have the nerve to stand before me and somehow suggest that the ultimate responsibility associated with your food, clothing, shelter, water, healthcare, security, sanitation, education, and utilities does not rest with you? It rests in somebody else's hands? Well, that's somebody else's hands that you're counting on. Doesn't care about you, doesn't care about your babies, you are a number, you're a consumer, you're a black body, you're a black womb, you're black skin for leather, you're black dollars. That's what you are. That's what you are to this system, a number, not a human. And you accept this. You accept this. We got these fucking talkers that would suggest that the value system that a slave master put on your black body 400 years ago is the value system that they're using today. And they open up their mouth and say they're high value because master put a tag on your ass. Because master owns you, huh? And so We see ourselves only in the context of white supremacy. Huh? We only view ourselves in the context of white supremacy, but white supremacy, as is expected, is failing. It's crumbling. White folk know it. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees the dollar. Everybody sees the degradation of humanity. They performed these acts for 400 years without any consequence, so that they believe that cause and effect does not impact them. In their own minds, they're supreme, and you're bowing to their rights and their politics and their everything as if they were supreme. You give them everything as if they were supreme. You measure yourself, you measure me, you measure your babies by this pedophile, right? Like, and so everything that they do is absolutely normal. Well, it's crumbling. It's coming undone right now as we speak. And white people, they're resisting it. They're losing their cookies, man, every single day. And guess what? You think, first of all, they're gonna pass, and I see my own people talking about the gun laws need to change. First of all, a criminal is doing what they're going to do outside of the law. So how does another law change that behavior at all? It doesn't. Guess what else? Here's the problem in America. When we can't use the word racism unless somebody does something horrible. We can't call somebody a monster until they do something horrible. See, it's a reactionary scenario that we live in. We have to see them do a horrible act before we can say that guy is a monster or that guy is a racist. The problem isn't the guy, right? You should read The Lucifer Effect. The problem isn't the guy. It's not the barrel. It's not the crabs in a barrel. It's not the bad apple in a barrel that's infecting all of the other apples. It is potentially the barrel. It is potentially what the apples are being put in that's causing it to rot and rot the rest of the apples. So it's not a bad apple on the police force. It's the fucking police force. It's not a bad apple within the society. It's the society. How do you not get this? It is not a bad apple. It's the condition, it's the situation that is producing these challenges, right? It's the situation that is producing it. So the self-destruction and the degradation of white people that you see today is natural. It's expected. You can't embrace hate, apathy, and disconnection for 400 years and think that you're going to be as just peachy as fucking apple pie. It doesn't work that way. It has an effect. You can't cut people's members off for hundreds of years and hang it over your wife's head like it was jewelry and remain a connected whole human being. You can't do that, right? You can't pass these practices down for centuries and remain a connected and whole human being. There's a degradation to the human being. There's a degradation to the connection. There is a necessary and natural disconnection that must happen within the human physiology for you to be able to endure that kind of stimulus. You have disconnected yourself, and everything that you see occurring today is a natural result of unnatural circumstances. Natural result. Of course, they're going to dwindle down. Of course, their eyes are going to start to wake up and realize you a nigga too, huh? Right? Of course, they're going to start to notice that they've been put into the same position that your family has been put in. And of course, they're going to reject and rebel, and they're going to lose it. You know, to whom much is given, much is required. But much has been enjoyed by them. You got to understand. You got to understand. The people of Rome afforded themselves great decadence. They enjoyed a lifestyle that was unparalleled anywhere. Baths and all kinds of gay shit, right? They did all kinds of things, right? They enjoyed a decadence that was unparalleled. Well, that necessarily became the breeding ground for perversion and it necessarily ushered in the end of the Roman Empire, right? America has enjoyed, without any chastisement, oh my goodness, great peaks of prosperity. So great that she's invited hundreds of millions of people from all over the world to come in and enjoy the bounty that was produced in our wombs, right? Necessarily, the recipe that has been followed over the last 400 years produces what it is that you see in 2022. This is natural. This is the natural result of an unnatural condition. So I don't know what the mindset is, right? I know everybody is traumatized over Buffalo, right? But what do you think? It's going to get better tomorrow? You think it's going to get better? You think this shit's going to go away? You think suddenly that these white folk are going to, what? Self-correct, come to Jesus? All of a sudden they're going to stop murdering you? It's going to increase. It is going to increase until they self-destruct. Their birth rate is low. They are waning. White supremacy was about white genetic annihilation, and the time is late. They are now beginning to disappear from this planet. It further means that power naturally will change hands. The pendulum swings, and power will naturally change hands. And I'm telling you, the man that has been sitting on top is a wicked man. And before he lets you take power, he will scorch the earth that he's standing on. He will destroy everything around him. So as you stand close, finding comfort, TikTok videos, happy to be a backup dancer for these fucking, happy to be a minstrel, watching these clowns talk, looking at relationship experts and why don't the couples, all this bullshit. I'm telling you, these people are trapping you. Everybody that you're listening to, everybody that you're seeing you fucking yapping about nothing are trapping you. I'm telling you right now, the fact, it's historical, it's right in front of you. Yes, they are human too. And yes, for 20 generations, they've embraced apathy, hatred, and disconnection. And yes, for 20 generations, we've lived in misery, given our bodies, our wombs, and everything to them in order to keep them strong. And yes, Rome fell in about 245, 250 years, and America will fall. It's happening, right? It's happening. All of this shit is going down right now. And you don't see it. And still, the population stands back while an armed force says, no, you stay there. Even though there's a man in there shooting your babies, even though there is a man in that school shooting your babies, this man is standing here with a weapon telling you, stay back, stay back, stay back. I'm not gonna speak to what I would do. Again, my kit is always on the ready, right? Nothing can absolve me of the responsibility to maintain the lives of those that I love. Nobody supersedes me. Who? The police officer? I'm waiting for him to save me? What? I'm waiting for the National Guard to save me? I'm waiting for somebody to save me? See, this is that same whittled down bullshit, right? Because we've become so confident, you know, the fact that water is delivered to our homes makes us think that it's magic, like the refrigerator light. Close the door, we don't know if it goes on or off. We don't have to, right? It's just magic. So we don't consider control of our own security. Instead, what we'll do is we'll whine about the purity of the water that we drink. We'll whine about the quality of the food that hits our table. We'll whine about the condition of the housing that we exist in. We'll whine about the security and the way it's meted out against us and our families, but we take no hand to manage our own security. We take no hand to purify our own water. We take no hand to raise our own food, only whine about who the fuck is providing it. Hey, bruh, hey, I've been here a long time, and I've been saying the same thing to my people for a long time. If you too soft to do it for yourself, then don't complain about who's providing it. You see, if you come to my dinner table because I have invited you to my dinner table, and you sit down with your punk ass and you start telling me, hey man, that's not how I like mine. Get the fuck up. Get the fuck up. Right? I didn't ask you how you liked yours. I invited you to my table. Right? So again, if there's not a shred in you that is determined to produce it for yourself, eat the cake, Annie Mae. Eat the cake, Annie Mae. You ain't got no voice. The only time you get voice is when you running it for yourself. Outside of that, how you alpha? Huh? How you high value, right? You high value to them. Yeah, again, I've been here an awfully long time, teaching the same lesson consistently. It is the same lesson that Malcolm X brought. It is the same lesson that Noble Drew Ali brought. It is the same lesson that the Black Panthers brought. It is the same lesson that Elijah Muhammad brought. It is the same lesson that Marcus Garvey brought. It's the same lesson that Frederick Douglass brought. Do for yourself. Nobody is going to save you. And guess what? Maybe y'all need to see more. Y'all need to see more, just one more, mass killing of Black people, and then it'll click, huh? Just one more. I don't know. I don't know. What more do you need to see before you begin to believe that the appropriate forward measure is to solve the problem for ourselves, because no one else is going to solve it? Sitting and waiting on reparations assumes that white supremacy is going to maintain power. Reparations can only be valuable if white supremacy is in power. So how is it that we're sitting and our greatest hope is that they stay in power? And we remain dependent upon them and subject to them and tied to the success and failure of another man. How is that our solution? If the solution being presented to you by any of your leaders does not culminate in, and then we will no longer be dependent upon any other man, if that is not the end point to your plan, then your plan is sophomoric. If the end point to your plan does not culminate in, and then we will no longer be dependent upon any other man, then your plan is sophomoric. We must have the resolve, as the people had that put this system in place 300 years ago, 400 years ago, they developed this system. And the measures that they enacted, they would never live to see the result of what they had done, and they did it anyway. We must have the same resolve. I got no complaints about what the hell is going on in this country. I expected it. I anticipated it. I told you. I anticipated it. I am not surprised in the least as it relates to the condition of this nation, the measures that they are considering, those things that they will enact, and what will happen in the short to midterm future to this country. I have no questions. I already know. It's written on the chicken bones, man. It's already been written. It's rolled and sealed in the scroll. It's already been written. I know what's about to happen here. My words and my time has been spent trying to reach you, trying to show you that there is a way, that there is an effort. And so I will continue to do what I do. And my efforts are not for comfort for me tomorrow. My efforts are not considering comfort for you tomorrow. My efforts is self-sufficiency for your babies 1,000 years from now. We must demonstrate the same resolve or a greater level of resolve of the ones that put the conditions in place that we are living in right now. There is no other solution. Daily bread keeps us trapped, focused on hand to mouth, hand to mouth. And so nobody has the ability to plan or think beyond today. Well, somebody must. Somebody must. My focus is 1,000 years into the future and working backwards from that place. We must have economy. We must have water. We must have food. We must have capacity. So my job doesn't culminate at the end of my life. My job culminates 1,000 years into the future. My job, the true measure of the work that I do, is reflected 1,000 years into the future, not tomorrow, not because I can buy a fucking Ferrari, not because I can live in a big house, not because I can do anything here aside from ensure the future for mine going forward. Ensure that what I have had to live through and that what my family over the last 20 generations have had to live through will not be passed down. They will not be on their knees. They will not be subject to the rights that some pedophile has granted them. They will not. They will not. And again, if that ain't what you're focused on, you ain't got no, you shouldn't be anywhere around me. If your focus is not to free every single person that comes after you, if your focus is not that, you shouldn't be anywhere around me, man. Not because nothing I say is going to make sense to you. Nothing I say will make sense to you because you're focused on temporary comfort. I'm focused on permanent solution. Again, come lay, stay, or pray. You know where the hell I'm going. You know what we doing. I come to change the world and I'm not alone.